Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this narration of the web series The Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 115. Memory Transcription Subject, Slanek, Venal Space Corps. Date, Standardized Human Time, January 14th, 2137. 7,000 human ships moved in a wide arc, closing in on the Kolshian drones. Manned enemy vessels were also hooking into the fray. The larger frames and bridge structures gave away which ones were traditional craft. These foes were unafraid, perhaps because their commanders were part of the conspiracy. Commonwealth automatons that were struck by our missiles had gotten their shields back up, while we dawdled rallying the Dirtian. The carrier Marcel and I were on veered to the flank, giving a wide berth to the heart of the action. Terran fighters and cruisers, the ones that survived saving our frazzled allies, veered back to escort us. Other manned vessels were transporting more humans to different targets, with the bravest few popping into enemy ranks. The Kolshians preemptively had FTL disruptors up, having learned of the primates' jump into Arxel ranks at Silas. Our boarders had to get up close to an enemy craft the old-fashioned way. Transport 8A, you're en route to Civilian Research Station. There was a small team of human doctors there as well, studying the effects of doser plants on our physiology. My commander's voice growled through the shuttle speakers. We presume that they are dead, since they weren't counted on any evac shuttles. However, your mission is to rescue any doser or humans you find aboard. Watch your fire. 3 of the other boarding parties are working different sides of the station. I winced to myself, not wanting to imagine what Kolshians had done to innocent predators. If those victims had survived for 3 weeks, that might be worse than a quick death. The Federation didn't shy away from starving or torturing anything with forward-facing eyes. Lyconis had denounced Sovereign's actions during Noah's speech, but talk was cheap. There was no telling what a lion like him would actually do. Marcel's eyes darkened. When I signed up for the exchange program, I was so excited about extraterrestrial life. Peacekeepers keep peace. We weren't supposed to be slaughtering aliens who tortured us. I'm glad I have you, Slanek. Else, I might think all Feds were murderous. We're not Federation, I snapped immediately. We left them, and we won't want to be associated with them. They called us weak for centuries. They are lying, deceiving facts. Sorry. I guess I meant every species in the Federation at the time of our arrival on the galactic scene. Regardless, I think we all know whatever happened to those humans wasn't good. Let's hope that we don't get the details spelled out. Makes my blood boil. How they treat your kind like animals. Looking back, I don't know how I ever thought that you were dangerous. Don't discount us now. We are dangerous, just not to our friends. The transport began powering up, and I reminded myself where the oxygen masks were in case of a depressurization. My bulletproof vest was tailored to a Vendel form, along with a small personal shielding system. It was supposed to mitigate environmental hazards, such as radiation or energy projectiles. I also had a customizable helmet, fitted with a camera for command review. The Terrans had poured everything into their research and development after Earth. I still remember sitting in that naval headquarters and seeing city after city fall in the broadcasts. It wasn't that long ago. Those poor humans who begged for peace to the moment the first bomb dropped. Despite the fact that I was an edge from the residual memories, a reminder of how my empathic hunters would be eradicated without remorse jolted me into combat readiness. The binocular eyes around me were icy with determination, and I could see the soldiers flipping the killing switch in real time. Humans wouldn't take kindly to their pack members being slaughtered in mass. The sooner that they could reach the station, the better. It was possible for me to watch the viewport from my periphery. I no longer needed blinders for deployment. The space battle was ongoing in full force, with both sides hurling shield breaker missiles at each other. The UN shielding flickered out, though the predators were prepared for that eventuality. They dispensed platforms out in front of them, like laying out a red carpet. Walls materialized in front of the ship, enough to cover the front line's full height from various angles. The Kolshians found their plasma munitions pummeling hardy fortifications. It was difficult to land any strikes against the humans. The primates procured layers of defense, which the enemy would need to strip away for a kill. I'd seen Terran-crafted weapons, but this was the first offensive innovation that I had shown off. The Dirtian were revitalized, chipping in with tepid shots and missiles. The humans leading the charge chucked a new wave of nano-drones at the Kolshians. The enemy saw the miniatures coming this time, but didn't have an answer to stop their approach. It was like trying to shoot an enemy perched atop a speeding car kilometers away. No targeting system or algorithm was programmed for that. AI adaptiveness couldn't drum up a solution that swiftly. Marcel grinned at the viewport. "Kolshian fleet, we're here to talk to you about your car's extended warranty." Explosions rocked the enemy line at the end of the sentence, and gruff cackles rippled across our transport. I found myself laughing at the destruction alongside the predators, which was further proof of my unwell mind. The nanodrones had skirted Kolshian shields and turned these opponents into debris shards, set adrift by an engine eruption. The Terran fleet was cozy and untouchable behind their physical barriers, as hundreds of adversaries were downed. With shields down across the board, it was the humans who were dishing out massive damage and protecting their own. The Kolshian drones were commanded to retreat, realizing that they needed to invite us deeper into Malu's system. Hunkering down was dandy, if we could afford to wait for the opponents to come to us. However, the United Nations needed to advance on targets, not camp out at the fringes. The Terrans disassembled the walls, which autonomously retracted into ship bays. They pursued the retreating Kolshians with zeal, perhaps incensed, as I was, by the prospect of captive humans. The Dirtian shields moseyed along, with the sporadic bursts of fire coming from their ranks. All they seemed to add was the illusion of depth. It was the predators forging ahead. "There is only one species that can challenge the Kolshians at all, but the humans will have to claw for every inch, and there'll be a fight on the ground too. We can't pull off a full frontal assault with civilians to rescue." Our carrier had separated from the larger fleet, and the research station was within view. The hangar bay doors lowered at a glacial pace, opening up the behemoth's belly to the effervescent stars. A piston brought the shuttle back, before propelling us forward with sudden momentum. My stomach lurched, and I leaned against my human for stability. The time for occupying myself with larger battle had expired. We had been released alongside a handful of other transports towards the conquered Dosa habitat. Kolshian warships prowled around the station, which looked like a series of rings stacked atop each other. These foes were more traditional enemy craft, designed to cart soldiers to and fro. They spotted our vector and rushed to intercept us. Terran fighters pulled away from our right side and moved to greet the interceptors. Their job was to ensure that we were unimpeded in traffic. I was well aware that our transport could succumb to a single shot that slipped through. Every life on board hinged on how well our allies could keep us out of the fight until we arrived at the station. "So, DoomSnek, what sort of training did you get to become a Vendel Space Corps pilot?" Marcel sensed my nerves at the incoming enemies, who were all well equipped to take out a ship like ours. The human was kind to distract me from the precarious fight, but his topic of choice was touchy. "Every time I asked you in the exchange program, you said you didn't want to talk about war, so I quit asking." I pinned my ears back. "You clearly didn't quit asking. Take a hint. Mostly they just taught us how to operate the ship and how to search for the fastest route to flee." Your military training taught you how to flee. In hindsight, it's obvious that the Federation was damn well trying to lose." "They told us that we couldn't beat the Greys. Truth was, the Kolshians could have swooped in the whole time. If I hadn't met the humans, I'd have never realized any of it. I'd still be a scared little Vendel, sniveling at the first sign of peril." Maybe I was happier then, though I wouldn't trade meeting Marcel for the world. What I wouldn't give to unlearn how readily I can kill. "What's wrong?" my human asked, blinking with concern. "You haven't been yourself since you came back from Cetus. You weren't yourself even before the Greys landed there." I snapped my head back like he'd slapped me. "Must you pry at every waking hour? Maybe I just don't want to talk all the time. We're in a fecking battle." Marcel clammed up, a taut grimace on his face. I suppose that was the wrong thing to say when I did want his concern and attention. Part of me wanted to confess how tormented I'd felt and admit the decline of my day-to-day stability. This was the wrong time for Slanek to go crying to his human, though. If I had made it through all the battles in the past, I could keep it together for one more prey. I drew a ragged breath and turned my focus to the fighters warding off the Colchians. Our transport twirled out of the way as a plasma beam slipped off in our direction. We were ready to evade on a moment's notice, despite how it sloshed the soldier passengers around. I couldn't wait to set my feet on the solid ground. It was terrifying to be caged as weapons sizzled around us. The carrier from which we came loomed behind us with a watchful eye. It boasted hardy munitions and a treasure trove of missiles, and it combined a whirlwind of those items against enemy ships. Drones spilled out from separate hangars in its belly. These robots expanded upon the nimbleness of narrow fighters. Faced with multiple new threats, the Colchians diverted attention to the source, easing the pressure off of us. Our transport seized the opportunity, refusing to slow down until it was absolutely necessary to breach the station. The humans weren't foolish enough to enter through an actual airlock. According to a commander who briefed us, the Colchians were smart enough to have those locked down tighter than a Fort Knox. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I understood the gist of it. Taking the path of maximum resistance wasn't my preferred action. I tapped my tail against Marcel's wrist, and he pushed it away. "Hey, I'm sorry for snapping. I'm just under a lot of stress, and I know you are too. So, it is wrong. You know I love our chats. That subject struck a nerve, that's all." "Don't sweat it," the human sighed. "I won't make the same mistake, giving you the silent treatment going into combat again. I just worried about you."
"No need to worry, my brother. So, I can put my tail back?"
"Bad chance, salt monster. We're touching down in a minute. We need to be ready."
I am ready to shove the next can of Pringles I get all the way up your ass."
Listen. He's catching on to our lingo, guys. We truly are corrupting the Venlo. Our transport bore down on the Dosa station and pulled up alongside a maintenance shaft. Arcs of white trailed behind us as Colchian guardians and human fighters were taking significant casualties. The UN carrier was still kicking, but the gaping holes in its hull suggested that it had seen better days. It wasn't clear who the localized victor would be, but that wasn't our concern. We had to assume the Terrans would reclaim the station and focus on retaking it from the ground.
The UN fleet seems to be progressing as well, and the Dirtian have stopped the bleeding from their ranks. The worst resistance is by Milu, though. We're lucky to be assigned to a small station.
The transport lurched as it deployed grappling hooks to the structure. Human soldiers chatted about it being like pirates. I tilted my head in confusion as I received a translation error. There was another phrase to ask myself in my spare time. Perhaps these pirates were human rescuers who saved lost ships. As someone who'd learned their real side, I wasn't going to assume that it was something predatory this time. We rose from our seated positions and arrayed by the exit to bridge the gap. The Terran had affixed an artificial tunnel to the station, ensuring that our travel point was oxygenated. I had also ensured that the target's atmosphere didn't leak into the great beyond. For humans, blasting through the structure's metal was a simple task, taking a matter of seconds. With mathematical precision, we were skulking into occupied territory. Panic threatened to swallow me, but it wasn't the mindless fear of my instincts. It was an onslaught of terrible sights, jumbled together from past battles. I took a series of deep breaths, as Sarah and her team taught me to do in the instinct suppression program. Oddly enough, rather than my emotions encouraging me to flee, it felt like I was seconds away from slipping into combat mode.
"There were human and Dosa civilians here," I soothed myself. "It'll all make sense once you're killing the Colchians that did this. You want those bastards to suffer, Slanek,
and you certainly don't want Marcel thinking of you as a liability again, like he would if he knew that you were in this rut." Human soldiers rolled grenades through the entrance before scurrying forward with weaponized muzzles alight. My red-haired predator wore a steady expression as we poured out through the breaching tunnel. I willed my own legs to move and clung to the orderly formation, despite sticking out like a rotting vegetable as the only Vendel, our unit banding together, rendering me part of the pack. The Colchians were our prey, vermin that needed to be cleansed from the station. We cleared the structural opening, and gunfire assailed the pack leaders. I hustled into the maintenance shaft and pointed my weapon. My claws was on the trigger before I could command myself to do so. Bullets from my firearm cleared the distance, and the deadly projectile struck true on a veteran Colchian. Violet fluid splattered behind the enemy's head. There was no question that had been my kill. I hoped to feel some remorse, but I sensed only the chaos of the situation. Crimson blood spurted from one Terran's shoulder, and another primate slumped to the ground across from me. Marcel was moving to cover, Hale's eyes wide and determined. We had expected to take casualties, with this much resistance present. As the humans exchanged fire with the Colchians, I issued a silent plea to the universe for our success. Every station and stretch of land within Malu's desecrated vicinity would be an uphill battle to reclaim. If the Predators didn't deal numerous defeats to the Federation today, our chances in the overarching war looked significantly less optimistic. End of chapter. I would quickly like to thank our Tier 5 patrons, Dragzoon W.R.E, Quantum Wednesday, Ambrose Catal, Lord Azrakal, Bushmaster 177, Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, and Arcadian. Thank you very much.